would you say to folks arguing immigrants are a burden on our healthcare system? What healthcare system do we have? Number one. Number two, no, they're not. Undocumented immigrants cannot take advantage of like any kind of social safety nets that exist for very poor people in terms of like healthcare assistance. The only thing that they actually do take advantage of is the emergency room, and that constitutes 0.09% of overall healthcare budgets that the government is actually spending money on. So it's just not a real thing. Every single number that right-wingers present when talking about undocumented migrants are not actually about the cost of undocumented migrants overall. Because in the cost benefit analysis, undocumented migrants, given the horrifying conditions that they withstand in the American labor force, are actually putting in a ton more revenue into the system than they take out. They actually will cynically do this thing that is disgustingly racist, but is rarely ever called out. They factor in the children of undocumented migrants who are American citizens born on U.S. soil. They are American citizens. They will say, oh, undocumented migrants cost like $3 billion a year of taxpayer funded like education and all this stuff. And you're like, hold on, undocumented migrants can't take advantage of any of those things. How are they doing that? And then you actually dive into the numbers and you realize, oh, they're looping people in who are American citizens into the numbers. Okay. So remember, if you hear like a massive number, look at the data. They're lumping in documented, natural born U.S. citizens in terms of, here it is. Yeah. The cost of illegal immigration to taxpayers. Immigration Integrity Security Enforcement Subcommittee of the House Judiciary hearing entitled The Impact of Illegal Immigration and Social Services. Illegal immigrants are a net fiscal drain, meaning they receive more in government services than they pay in taxes. This is a result not due to laziness or fraud. Illegal immigrants actually have high rates of work. They do pay some taxes, including income and payroll taxes. The fundamental reason that illegal immigrants are a net drain is that they have a low average education level, which results in low average earnings and tax payments. It also means that a large share of the quality for welfare programs often receiving benefits on behalf of U.S. born children. It's literally right there in the summary. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. What do you mean? Those are American citizens, dude. What the are you talking about? What are you talking about? It is objectively wrong to lump in natural born U.S. citizens into the drain that undocumented citizens are costing the United States of America. That's ridiculous. What the are you talking about? That's not how that works. On a practical level, how would you propose to house undocumented migrants when we don't even have enough housing for citizens? We do have enough housing for citizens. You're delusional for thinking that we don't have enough housing for citizens. Mass construction is a slow process, even if there was the political will. Meanwhile, the number of homeless continue to skyrocket. If you think that homelessness is a crisis born out of undocumented migrants coming into the United States of America and not because housing is seen as an investment vehicle and many Americans that are homeowners want their property price to go up because it's like their only way of accumulating any kind of wealth, then I got something funny to tell you. It's called public housing. Okay. You're saying that like we don't have enough houses. You're wrong. We do. We have more vacant properties than we have the total number of homeless in this country. That's number one. Number two, it is directly a consequence of keeping house prices high. There is no political will to actually fix the housing crisis in this country. But we need to build more. Dog, I just told you we already have existing units. We still do need to build more. You are right, especially in high urban areas. But the problem is people don't want to do that, and people don't want to build the actual necessary type of housing. Okay? Social housing. You forget that the NIMBY mentality causing affordable housing to be in places you don't want to live. No, it's ridiculous. I don't care what NIMBYs believe. Even if you do, they attempt initiative. NIMBYs make it impossible to do this building. You definitely see this in LA. There are 27.4 empty homes per homeless person right now in the United States of America. We should be building public housing that would single-handedly readjust the housing market. You see it all over the Central Coast to preserve the look of the city. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You can preserve the look of the city while simultaneously building higher density housing. But also, it's not even just higher density housing. Like all the Twitch streamers gentrified LA. Yeah, we gentrified LA. One of the worst housing markets historically on the planet. It was the Twitch streamers that did that. Take the horse blinders off for a brief moment and be for real, dude. Anyway, undocumented migrants do not actually factor into the conversation about housing at all. It's ridiculous. Illegal immigration, tax cuts, don't take guns. Some policies are good, some are bad. Abortion. See, this is what I mean. It's like, one, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have just adopted the right-wing framing on this issue. Stop illegal immigration. The largest amnesty ever given to undocumented migrants on U.S. soil was given by Ronald Reagan. Okay. That's number one. Beyond that, it's not like the Democrats are pro undocumented migration into this country any more than the Republicans are. Okay. The real secret is that both parties are pretty restrictive when it comes to undocumented immigration. And not only that, but also, that is what allows Donald Trump to say things like, we're doing child separation, but who built the cages? Barack Obama, which is true. Barack Obama did build the cages. Donald Trump used them. So ultimately, though, neither party is saying we are pro illegal immigration. That's not a real thing. And neither party actually is. They're both very draconian, very restrictive. The reality, on the other hand, however, is that the reason why they are restrictive on immigration is so that there are people that come into the country knowing full well, we all know that they're going to come into the country regardless, that we can abuse and use and hyper exploit, even more so than the documented U.S. labor pool, which is already pretty heavily exploited. That's the real reason why we have immigration laws in the restrictive white nativist ways that we have them. Did DACA not happen? You have an issue with babies that were brought over the border? That's like 500,000 total votes, by the way. Can you even vote on DACA? DACA has 90% approval rating, which means Republicans and Democrats both agree that yes, if you are a childhood arrival, they can't even but if you came over the U.S. border as like a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 14-year-old, okay, and this is the only country that you know, it is unimaginably inhumane to literally ship your back to a random country that you have no association with. That's precisely the reason why, regardless of what you're saying in here, it's got 90% approval rating, as in Republicans like it too, not just Democrats. But remember, you started off by claiming that you were a centrist, and now you're taking an anti-DACA position. Do you think that you're on the center of this conversation, or do you think you're on the far right of this conversation? So unimaginably far right that like you are literally outflanking the overwhelming majority of Republican voters in general when you say, DACA happened. Do you even know what DACA is? Yeah, and no, you cannot vote as a DACA recipient. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program established in 2012 provides temporary protection from deportation and work authorization to eligible young immigrants. There are approximately 800,000 DACA recipients in the U.S. DACA recipients are not eligible to vote in the U.S., so you were wrong on that front too. So unless you think there is like secretly a ton of undocumented and even like temporarily documented but formerly undocumented immigrants in this country that are secretly voting, and they're secretly voting for the Democratic Party, which there is no proof for, by the way, and only evidence to suggest the exact opposite, you're just running on fumes, running on right-wing delusions, okay? I didn't claim I was a centrist. I'm independent. I voted for Obama the first time. Was DACA not a pathway to citizenship? Thought it was touted that way. It just offers the opportunity for people who were brought into the United States borders as a minor the opportunity to work, okay? The opportunity to get an education. They can't even leave the country. They have so many goddamn restrictions. Will this change your analysis in any capacity? Probably not. There should be a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients. That's also pretty popular as well. You cannot have any sort of criminal record if you're a DACA recipient. I mean, you're heavily restricted. You can't even leave the country. There is an unimaginable amount of restrictions on it. You can go to college and work though. So there you go. They pay taxes. They have an endless amount of restrictions. It's complete hell. They can't leave the goddamn country. They can't even have a smidge on their goddamn criminal record. Still harder on immigration, tax cuts, no gun control. Your harder on immigration narrative falls apart the moment that you learn what the things you're talking about are. You're harder on immigration. Why? And you haven't even presented how Democrats are not hard on immigration. They are unimaginably hard on immigration. The real question to ask you is, why do you think immigrants that are coming into this country are actually harming the United States of America? Because they're not. There's no evidence to suggest that they do. As a matter of fact, they literally are the reason why we have been able to overcome the problem that many developed nations inevitably run into, which is birth rates. They keep the country young. The Democrats ran on Trump being scared for immigrants in 2020. What the reality is this? The Democrats ran on Trump doing unimaginably cruel things to immigrants, which he did. The Democrats should continue running on that because he wants to do mass deportation. That means SWAT teams doing dragnets in brown neighborhoods, okay? 15 million people living on U.S. soil that work jobs that is necessary for your survival, getting ripped away from their homes and being kicked out of the country and placed in concentration camps. The real solution to the undocumented immigration problem, when there is no real problem, is to offer them citizenship and document them and process them so they can participate in the labor force in the exact same ways that documented U.S. Labor participates in the labor force, and also, allow them to unionize alongside everyone else. Another fun fact about this: if undocumented immigrants were given legal status, tax contributions could increase by 2.1 million, and the national tax rate average would increase by 9 million. 15 million, no problem. Turn them into citizens. Why do you think that there's a problem with that? Why do you think there is a problem with that? Centrist chatter. Remember, you're a centrist, right? Or an independent. Why do you think there's a problem? Tell me exactly why there is an issue with documenting and processing all of those people. Why do I think there's a problem with 50 million people coming here illegally and given a blank slate? What do you mean a blank slate? How do you think processing works? And what is the blank slate? Do you think that automatically all 15 million people that have actually come into the United States of America are engaging in criminal activity? And don't say they crossed the border. That is a crime. Okay, so it's jaywalking. Give me an answer. What is the punishment for coming illegally in your plan? Why should there be a punishment for coming here illegally in my plan? They've already suffered enough. You're not answering my question. What have they done wrong? 15 million people. What have they done wrong? Absolutely not. I'm just saying, if you reward breaking the law, you get lawbreakers. That is ridiculous. You're still avoiding the question. What have they done wrong? What is the problem with migrants? Okay. You slap on undocumented or illegal in front of it and then expect people to be like, yeah, I agree with you. There's something wrong with that. What have they done wrong? Without undocumented migrants, by the way, you would not have an agricultural business in this country. You would not have any of the treats that you currently get at the price points that you get. That's the other side of this conversation. There would be no construction. There would be no agribusiness in this country. There would be nothing, okay? No chicken plants, no poultry facilities, no meat plants, nothing. But what do you think is the issue? What do you think they are doing wrong? Say it with your chest. I need to know. They enter the country illegally. They artificially lower the cost of labor. They abandon their own country. First of all, they abandon their own country. You don't give a about their country. Don't act like you care. Don't come in here with that cynical. They abandoned their own country. They entered the country illegally. Okay. Misdemeanor. Doesn't matter. Who gives? They artificially lower the cost of labor. This is the only thing that you brought up that is correct. There is a solution to this not being an issue. And I already told you what that is. Currently, as it stands, there's two tiers in the American labor force. You have the undocumented labor force and you have the documented labor force. They pay into taxes. They don't even get the social safety nets that others can get, okay? Like documented U.S. citizens can get. They would be paying more in taxes if they were documented. But not only that, the never-ending pool of undocumented labor actually does artificially lower the cost of labor. Okay, this is true. The solution to that isn't to purge the country of 15 million people. The solution to that is to process them. That's how it works. That's why I knew that this was inevitably going to come up, because it is true. The solution to that is to document them and allow them to participate in the documented labor force and unionize. It's that simple. The solution to control the flow of people in the country through visas and not take people illegally border hopping, if there was a more meaningful reform on the way that migrants get processed and refugees get processed in this country, no one would be illegally entering the nation. Okay. And as it stands, the majority of undocumented migrants living on U.S. soil are not actually crossing the border. They're not hopping the border in the way that you think. They're actually visa overstayers. So they're literally flying into the country through the visa process anyway, but then the visa process ends up not offering them a meaningful pathway to citizenship. They should do that. Now, having said that, you're talking about the solution to control the flow of the people without responding to what I just told you. They'd lower the cost of labor. That's a real problem. Then document them. Why do you have an issue with that? If your problem is that they are artificially lowering the cost of labor, which is not their fault, then the government solution is to not deport them, but instead to document them, right? What do you mean by document them? The only difference between an undocumented migrant and any other kind of migrant is paperwork. Chatter. That's what I mean by document them. I have a problem with it because it addresses a symptom of the issue and doesn't anything to do to stop flow. What do you mean stop flow? You still have yet to explain to me what the problem is in terms of migrants coming into the United States of America. Out of all of the things that you brought forward, there's only one that is actually a valid concern. I addressed your valid point of concern. You didn't actually have anything to say about that. And then you turned around around and said, oh, but there's going to be a flow. There's going to be a flow of migrants. What is the problem with migrants coming into the United States of America? What is the problem with migrants coming into the United States of America? What is the problem? Just say it. You obviously have these very strong issues. You have these strong, firm held positions. You should not have a problem explaining exactly what it is. Taxes, lower wages, loss of shared national identity. Lower wages, loss of shared identity. Okay, let's address it. Taxes, you're absolutely wrong on. Not only are you wrong, I already told you, undocumented migrants literally give more to the system than they actually take out. So you're wrong about that. Completely wrong about that. Secondly, if they were documented, they'd give even more taxes to the system. As far as lower wages goes, we already addressed it. The problem there in terms of lower wages actually stems from the government not really allowing people to unionize and take a higher percentage of the profits that they are generating for corporations. It's the same principle for documented migrants, the same principle for undocumented migrants. It's the same principle for natural born U.S. citizens. Okay. Every single person, regardless of where they were born, has the exact same issue. Now, as far as loss of shared national identity goes, that is hokum. There are studies conducted on this as well. By second generation, every single migrant group that has come into this country has almost entirely assimilated to American culture. And by the third generation, there is virtually no distinction between any migrant population. At that point, they're also like American citizens as well, obviously. The United States is a land of migrants. It's comprised entirely of migrants in general, okay, from all different parts of this planet. As far as like loss of national shared identity, that's ridiculous. That's not a real thing. It's a completely made up notion. Okay. And you literally know people like this in your life because this is a land comprised of immigrants. How many people do you think you know that have parents that are first generation? How many people do you think you know that you talk to on a daily basis that have parents that are first generation immigrants? You are currently talking to someone who came to this country. I'm a natural born U.S. citizen because I'm an anchor baby, but I came to this country at the age of 18. I am virtually indistinguishable from the average American. About 10 of my friends. Exactly. Would you say that they are not Americanized? Would you say that about 10 of your friends are contributing to a loss of shared national identity, or 10 of your friends are completely Americanized? You grew up with these people. You literally live this on a daily basis, but people in the media tell you that it's actually not the case. So who are you going to trust? Your own personal anecdotal evidence, your own personal experience with people that you know? I would say the conditions they grew up in are a lot different than the communities being established today. You are just being taught to believe that the conditions are different today. Yes, dog. Don't be annoying. I'm treating you with respect and dignity. Don't turn around and be like, yes, dog. Like, you genuinely do not have a fundamental premise that you're operating off of that is born out of the reality. You are literally experiencing reality. People are telling you something that is not corresponding to what your experience is. And now you're trying to make up for that contradiction by just continuing along with the falsehood. Your own personal experiences literally destroy this argument that you are currently presenting. Don't be bad faith. And by the way, there's evidence for this. There's studies on this. Okay. There are studies on this. By the third generation, with educational attainment, with job retention, and every other kind of experience, by the third generation, there is virtually no difference between a migrant, someone who is 2 generations removed from like coming into the United States than anybody else. Okay. As a matter of fact, you probably are 3, maybe 4 generations removed from being a migrant. So many Americans are quite literally, so many white Americans are quite literally 4, 5, 6 generations removed from being a migrant. Nah, I've been here since Jesus. Fuck does that even mean? Are you Native American? Like, what are you talking about? Or, oh my God, are you Mormon? I'm a white guy. My grandparents were immigrants. I'm definitely 100% American. Yep. There's a concern for animosity between ethnic groups in America, but that's stoked by insecurity and capital owners pitting groups against each other. Yeah, but ultimately, that animosity is like blown out of proportion too. Ridiculous. When you have these sorts of conversations with people, they come at it with these like vague generalizations and silly attitudes, and it completely falls apart. Truth is the greatest anecdote in this circumstance. It's actually significantly easier to have this conversation with people than you think. Just don't immediately call them them racist or whatever, work through all of these issues that they supposedly have. In so many circumstances, the truth will reveal itself. Like the actual position that they have will reveal itself, or they'll agree with you at the end of it. I live in a large immigrant town. There are a lot of new and old immigrants that refuse to learn or adapt or even learn English. I wonder about these communities. I'm Brazilian. I see this a lot in my communities. They even brought our material realities here with foods and brands from Brazil. How do you assimilate with these people in the communities? Can you unite? Bro, it's like talking about Chinatown. You know what I mean? That don't matter. It's good that there's like remnants of the culture that they bring here. Okay. That makes it better for everybody else. It makes the food better. It makes American culture better. The idea that they're not going to assimilate to American culture is silly. It doesn't work that way. Even if they live in a cultural enclave, even if someone lives in a cultural enclave, the integration is a reality. It just doesn't matter if people are like, oh, I'm not going to learn. It doesn't matter. Okay. Especially by the second generation, when you have a child that is an American citizen, a natural born U.S. citizen, like they're just American, they're going to American schools. Like there isn't a situation where they're just like, nah, dude, I'm not American. People will say like, oh, they shouldn't assimilate or whatever, but like that's not how this works. Okay, you need to have some semblance of like cultural unity if we're having a serious conversation about it. Of course, that's what public education is about. That's what the military is about. These are all factors at play that actually create a cohesive national identity. Okay, we're not gonna have like theoretical anarchist, no orders, no boundaries type conversations at this point. The greatest example is nobody makes that argument against Little Italy in New York. Thank you. Exactly. Okay. You don't say that about that. Think why.
A migrant from Honduras was arrested after he was accused of stabbing a teenage girl at a baseball game in...
I swear to God, anytime a undocumented migrant does a crime, they literally talk about it. Anytime. It's crazy. Anytime, bro. I swear, they're literally going to start talking about like check fraud. A guy from Guatemala actually shorted me $25. You need to know that Guatemalans are not to be trusted. Joe Biden is the reason for this. It's crazy, bro. This does not mean that this isn't a horrific crime, okay? It absolutely is, okay? But holy dude, you have to look at the numbers, goddammit. And numbers on the board, I'm sorry, no disrespect to the Guatemalan migrants, but they ain't doing enough, okay? They're not doing enough crime. They cannot outcompete natural-born U.S. citizen crime, okay? This is some DEI dude. Republicans love talking about DEI, and then they're doing DEI for Honduran crimes, dude. They got like one guy that does one stabbing a year in comparison to natural-born U.S. citizens doing it 10,000 times a year, and they're like, the one time they do it, it's like, well, see? Why are you doing DEI for criminals? Stop highlighting this 63, dude. Or not even 63. Not even 63. 25 homicides. These motherfuckers can't kill for 25 homicides in the fiscal year 2024, dude. 25! What the one white American school shooter hits that number over a week, dude. One good week of American school shootings, you hit that number. Two different American citizens can hit that number in two different goes. You know what I mean? What the be for real, dude? What are we doing here? It is ridiculous, dude. It is ridiculous. It's like a Honduran dude sneezes in your direction and you hear about it in local news, and then all the way at Fox News is like, oh, dude, see? They don't put enough numbers on the board for you to care this much about it. There's got to be a different reason. I wonder what the different reason is. Oh my God, it almost feels like you're just a racist psychopath. This is exactly how Breitbart used to operate back in the day when they had the black crime tab, as in whenever a black person does a crime, they would get alerted and you would get alerted if you followed the black crime tab on Breitbart. Fun fact, Ben Shapiro used to write for Breitbart. He was really upset that Milo Yiannopoulos was maybe doing too much Nazi stuff, and he was always on board with like most of the Nazi, just not the anti-Semitism. He didn't like that. Back when he used to write for Breitbart, they had a black crime tab. Anytime there was a crime done by a black person, people who follow that tab would get alerted. So why do you have that? Why is that a thing that they no longer have? Why did they have it back in the day? What could be the motivation for that? Why don't they have it anymore? Do you understand? Here are the school shooting deaths by year, second paragraph. There have been 129 people killed and 346 people injured from school shooters since 2018. Dude, I'm telling you, there have been 204 school shootings in which at least one person was killed or injured since 2018. They had 22 school shootings in 2024. There's only been 7 killed in school shootings. This year's been particularly low for school shootings. Like, I think obviously 2022 was a big year for school shootings, 40 people. That's a lot. 100 people injured, 40 people killed in school shootings. I believe that was the Uvalde year. You know, school shootings are kind of on a downturn right now. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty bearish on school shootings. Like, obviously, once Donald Trump is reelected, we'll probably see a lot more gun culture, a lot less restrictions on guns. Like, we'll really bring those numbers back up. So look for entirely different trajectory on school shootings in the United States of America after November 5. So we still got a quarter to go. Obviously, there's one more school semester. So we'll see what happens. But honestly, numbers are pretty low so far. I think one of the craziest statistics that I just found out, in the year 2020, 3 people were killed in school shootings and 10 school shootings happened. How is that possible? School was not even in operation. Americans find a way to do school shootings when you don't even have school. During lockdown, Americans still did school shootings. Are you kidding me? What did you do? Kill your mom? Did you do a homeschool shooting? What the were you doing? Did you shoot up the Zoom meeting? How did you do a school shooting? 10 times during lockdown. I hate this country. Everything that the British say about like, at least our schools are not a shooting gallery is true. Look at this.